Salutations to all you great workers out there. My name is Brandon Martin, and it is an absolute pleasure to be a part of the FUNL Conference 2023. Today, I will be presenting the presentation called The Spirit of Freedom, the Inner Flame and Crown of Sacred Autonomy. So without further ado, let's get right into the heat of this very critical information. So I'm going to start out here with some caveats. This is not intended to be a full historical analysis of the evolution and development of freedom throughout history. In no way could I hope to cover all the critical points that must be made about the spirit of freedom in the time allotted for this presentation. And understand that I'm not trying to convince you or anybody of anything. I am only in service to the truth. That's it. Take what I have said here or leave it at your own risk. And I thought we would start out with this very profound quote by Mark Twain. The truth must be served like a coat and not thrown in the face like a wet towel. As we progress through this, I'm going to be trying to give a rudimentary understanding of some of the critical points about what we consider to be freedom throughout history. And like I said, I'm not capable of covering all the intricate details or anything of such. And I would only hope that you would do your due diligence into furthering your education by studying history so that you can understand the evolution. Really, it's the evolution of slavery and not freedom. Throughout history, the concept of freedom has been a powerful and enduring ideal that has inspired countless movements, revolutions, and struggles for liberation. From ancient times to the present day, people have fought and sacrificed for the right to live and act according to their own will, free from oppression, tyranny, and domination. Freedom is an inherent fundamental human right and a necessary condition for individual autonomy, creativity, evolution, and happiness. Freedom is not a privilege. Let me repeat that. Freedom is not a privilege that is granted to you by any form of authority. We're going to talk a lot about that today. So through history, we see these concepts, what we consider to be the evolution of the protection or the granting of individual rights. So some examples of this, we can go to Mesopotamia. Hammurabi's Code in 1754 introduces the idea of laws and justice, providing some level of freedom for citizens. Slavery was prevalent, limiting the freedom of a significant portion of the population, and in truth, probably most of the population. So we have ancient Greece, in Athens, the birthplace of democracy, which is just mob rule by the most ignorant, really, where the citizens had the right to, quote unquote, participate in decision-making processes, but slavery was still widespread. And then we also have things like the Stoics and Cynics that arose in these time periods, like Epicurus and Diogenes, which is, different forms of philosophy that kind of emphasize personal freedom through self-mastery and kind of challenge the authorities, which I would consider to be some of the early ideals of anarchistic ideologies. We have the Roman Empire. Roman law granted certain rights to citizens. You can see these concepts of like people giving over these rights like they didn't already have them, right? But not to slaves or conquered peoples. The Pax Romana, a period of relative peace and stability across the empire, provided an environment conducive to trade, cultural and exchange, and intellectual pursuits. Freedom was not extended universally. Slavery was an integral part of the Roman society, and many individuals lived under oppressive yoke of bondage, the oppressive yoke of bondage, devoid of freedoms enjoyed by Roman citizens. Their rights were severely curtailed, and their destinies were subject to the whims of their owners. So obviously I could not fit into the time allotted for this presentation every little piece of historical data that I would like to. I had to cut out a lot of the substance for this presentation. So I'm just trying to hit on a couple crucial points, which most people should be very aware of at this point. So we have the Age of Enlightenment, 17th and 18th century. We have philosophers like John Locke and Rousseau advocating for natural rights, including freedom of thought, speech, and religion. These ideas laid the groundwork for later revolutions. We have our American Revolution in 1775 to 1783, inspired by Enlightenment ideals. The American colonies fought for independence from British rule. The Declaration of Independence, 1776, emphasized unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit for happiness. We have the French Revolution, which came after this, 1789 to 1799, the overthrow of the monarchy and the rise of the French Republic, Declaration of Rights of Man, the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, 1789, proclaimed equality, freedom, and popular sovereignty. And then we have, moving into the 19th century, we have the abolition movement. We see the fight against slavery and the slave trade leading to its abolition in various countries, which is actually not the case. It has not been abolished. Prominent figures including Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, and William Wilberforce were, very influential in these time periods. We have the Civil Rights Movement, 20th century. African Americans in the United States fought against racial segregation and discrimination. Influential leaders at this time period were people like Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and Malcolm X. Global movements for independence. This would be current day, right? Decolonization movements in Africa, Asia, and the Americas sought freedom from colonial powers. We hear this a lot, colonial powers, right? Examples include Indian independence led by Mahatma Gandhi and the end of apartheid in South Africa led by Nelson Mandela. I hope I pronounced that right. So this is just a summary of kind of what we just went over. Enlightenment philosophers such as John Locke and Rousseau laid the groundwork for modern conceptions of freedom, individual rights with their writings. Their ideas greatly influenced the American Revolution. The American and French Revolution of the 18th century were key moments in this process as they helped to establish the idea of popular sovereignty and individual liberty, which is true. The abolition of slavery and women's suffrage movement and the struggle for civil rights in the 20th century further expanded the reach of freedom and challenged the legacy of racism, sexism, and discrimination. It is essential to acknowledge that the concept of freedom has been present in various forms throughout human history, and different societies have valued and fought for freedom in their own unique ways. The American Revolution represented a significant milestone in the ongoing quest for freedom. I think it's one of the most important milestones that the human race has ever achieved, but I still have contention with the way that has unfolded, obviously. Even though these movements towards creating a more free society have paved the way for where we are at currently, we still must be honest about the situation and fully recognize that we are still not free today. One of the major failures in most of these movements is due to the lack of the required occulted knowledge and the efforts towards living in harmony with the objective laws of nature. Due to the scarcity and intentional withholding of critical information pertaining to natural law, people have been socially conditioned and epigenetically bred to accept slavery as a norm. One major factor of this is that sadly most people do not recognize the condition of slavery that they are under because it is not a form of overt chattel slavery. It has incrementally become more covert, but still very abundantly in the presence of each individual's lives all over the world today. So what do all these things kind of have in common? Well, mainly it's the belief in authority. It's a belief that man can be the lawmaker. Even though that some of these things did open up a lot more ability for us to express freedoms, in many other ways, there has been more freedoms removed depending on the time period and what kind of freedoms we're looking at trying to express. So just study the Overton window and you can see what I mean about how they can incrementally move the window to make it seem like you're having more freedom and then take more freedoms in another area. So all of these things have one thing in common: the dogmatic belief that man can be the lawmaker and the arbiter of the law. Okay? And when I mean law, I mean higher case law, not man's law. The idea of the divine right of kings dates back to ancient civilizations where rulers were often considered godlike figures, with monarchs claiming their legitimacy directly from God, and it should be quote unquote directly because they cannot get that directly. This did change to the idea that rulers claim their right to rule from ad populum, which is the appeal to the public or a community. So we often hear about this fallacy, like appeal to population, right? There's more of them, so I must be right, or the statement that I make must be right because more people agree with me. Well, this is the same idea. Both of these notions are just fallacious excuses for tyrants to reign dominance over this world. No man or group of men has the right to claim ownership over another, no matter what they claim the source is. The belief in man's legitimate authority is a psychopathology that is the perpetuator of this world's grievances and unnecessary suffering. It is man claiming to be the Most High, which is nothing more than a proxy of the true creator. It can and never will be true. Man is not the lawmaker. Let me repeat that. Man is not the lawmaker, and it will never be so. It can never be and will never be so. No matter what source they claim it comes from, it can never be. It is an impossibility that man can be the lawmaker. So let's get into anarchy. The definition of anarchy. The term anarchy derives from the Greek word anarchia, which is a combination of two words, an meaning without or absence of, and archos, meaning ruler or authority. When combined, anarchia signifies without rules or absence of authority. Anarchy does not mean no rules. Obviously, there are rules, and there are moral standards that we must live by. It means the absence of the slave-master relationship. That's what it literally means. No masters, no slave. That's all it's ever meant. That's all it ever will mean. Anarchy is not synonymous with chaos or disorder, but rather a voluntary order arising from the mutual respect and cooperation among self-governing individuals. It rests upon the truth that human beings possess the capability and capacity for rationality, moral judgment, and peaceful interaction, enabling them to organize society through consensual agreements and free association. It rejects the idea that any individual or institution can claim a monopoly on power and impose their will on others by the abuse of force. Instead, it upholds the principle of non-aggression and self-defense, emphasizing that individuals have the right to live their lives as they see fit, as long as they do not infringe upon the equal rights of others. It recognizes the primacy of individual freedom, voluntary exchange, wherein people engage in peaceful interactions and form voluntary associations based on their shared values and interests. Anarchy advocates for the abolition of coercive institutions, particularly the state, which is viewed as an illegitimate authority that violates individual liberty just by being in existence and perpetuates injustice. Anarchists argue that the state's monopoly on law and order not only subjugates individuals, but also stifles competition, innovation, and progress. Anarchy, in this view, presents the opportunity for society rooted in self-ownership, free markets, and decentralized decision-making. Anarchism through history. Here's a little brief understanding of the history of anarchism. And I did a really, really good episode with James Cordner from The Hitchhiker's Guide to Truth on the history of anarchism. So if you're interested in learning more about the history of anarchy, I would check that out. I also have a book coming out here in the near future about the history of anarchism. Anarchism stands as a provocative and often misunderstood ideology born from a deep distrust of hierarchical authority and a yearning for individual freedom. Anarchism has weaved its way through the annals of history, leaving an inevitable mark on the struggles for liberation, social justice, and the pursuit of a society built on principles of equality and autonomy. Rooted in the belief that individuals possess the capacity for self-governance and cooperation, anarchism emerged as a forceful critique of oppressive systems and centralized power structures. From the writings of Pierre-Joseph Proudhon in the 19th century to the fiery rhetoric of Emma Goldman and Mikhail Bakunin in the late 19th century and early 20th century, anarchism has offered a radical alternative to the prevailing quote-unquote order, and really what it is disorder. Anarchism's historical narrative is closely intertwined with the struggles of marginalized communities and the fight against various forms of oppression. In the labor movements of the 19th and early 20th century, anarchists played a vital role advocating for worker empowerment and the abolition of exploitative labor practices and the creation of cooperative societies. They stood shoulder to shoulder with those who sought to challenge the capitalist system, which should just be considered the statist system, and envisioned a world where economic and social relations were based upon voluntary association and mutual aid. Throughout history, anarchists have been at the forefront of social and political movements, their voices echoing in the fight against imperialism, colonialism, and war. From the Spanish Civil War, where anarchist militias fiercely defended their vision of stateless societies against fascism, to the grassroots movements for civil rights, gender equality, and environmental justice, anarchism has left an indelible imprint on the struggles for freedom and social transformation. Anarchism embodies a profound faith in the capacity of human beings to organize themselves harmoniously, to cooperate without coercion, and create an inevitable and just society. It calls for the reimagining of power structures, advocating for decentralized decision-making processes and direct participation in shaping the communities we inhabit. Anarchism, like any ideological framework, is not panacea for all societal woes. It invites critical engagement, continuous reflection, and recognition that the journey towards a more just and liberated society is an ongoing process that challenges us to question the assumptions and structures that underpin our current system and to strive for a more equitable and compassionate world. So I know this isn't like a in-depth, analysis of the ideological framework of anarchism, and this probably seemed a little rhetorical and repetitive, but I just wanted to lay these out so that we really can hammer on the idea of a stateless society and why anarchism is just mainly about voluntary cooperation without coercion. That's what this is really about, a state of existence without any form of coercive authority that dictates our lives. So I'm going to introduce a subject here, which maybe some people have never heard. I hope people have heard of this, but maybe not. And if you haven't, well, here it is. It's called verarchy. Verarchy is a philosophical ideal in which truth is considered the highest value, and all decisions and actions are based upon the pursuit and affirmation of truth. It is an ethical concept that emphasizes the importance of honesty, transparency, and accuracy in all critical aspects of life based on objective facts and evidence, which I feel is very, very important, rather than on subjective opinions or biases. While the concept of verarchy may sound idealistic to some and difficult to achieve in practice, it reflects a broader concern with the importance of truth in society and the need to promote accountability. It also underscores the value of critical thinking, independent inquiry, and evidence-based decision-making as essential tools for promoting the evolution of the species. Verarchy and anarchy are extremely similar in their philosophical and epistemological ideas. Both are forms of abolitionism, which endeavor to seek the obliteration of all false forms of dogmatic authority and to manifest a society based upon objective principles and truth. So I feel like these are kind of the two pillars that the society should be based upon. Anarchy, the absence of all forms of rulership, and in verarchy, the only true ruler is that of truth, So I thought I would bring that to the table to see if that would help anybody kind of to solidify their philosophical framework and their axiomatic framework for these concepts. So what is slavery? Seems like this would be an easy one to answer, right? But I ask people this question all the time, and they can't really come back with a good answer ever. So slavery is a claim of ownership on your person, product of your labor, or your possessions, in whole or part. All natural rights are property rights. This is something that really needs to get through the heads of a lot of anarchists and pretty much anybody in the world. Understanding these is fundamental to understanding the condition of slavery. We all own ourselves and have the right to live freely and exercise our natural rights, provided actions we perform do not infringe upon another person's rights. Anyone who dares to try and stop people from living within these natural rights is making a direct claim of ownership upon others, which is the very definition of slavery. those who do this or condone this are de facto tyrants. So it doesn't matter. Like, all forms of wrongdoings are some form of slavery, even in the most micro sense. So if you steal something from somebody, you're claiming ownership over that property. And is that not a form of slavery? I want to talk about the trinity of slavery. So we have the trinity of slavery, which would be mental slavery, emotional slavery, and physical slavery. Mental slavery refers to the state of mind in which an individual or group of individuals have internalized certain beliefs, values, and attitudes that limit their ability to think independently and critically. This can manifest in a variety of ways, such as accepting societal norms without question, conforming to the expectations of others, and failing to challenge oppressive systems and structures. Mental slavery can be perpetuated through various means, including propaganda, indoctrination, and social conditioning. It can also be reinforced through systematic inequalities and discrimination that limits an individual's opportunities and experiences. Limits on competition is really what that is. So they're limiting the competition in the markets. Breaking free from mental slavery requires a conscious effort to critically examine one's beliefs and assumptions and to challenge them in the face of new information and experiences. It also requires a willingness to resist the pressures of conformity and to advocate for one to take personal responsibility of their own mind. That's very important. Personal responsibility of your own mind. You take accountability for what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and what you're doing. Now, emotional slavery refers to the situation in which an individual is controlled by their emotions and the emotional demands of others to the point where they feel trapped and unable to make decisions or act independently. This can occur in various contexts, such as personal relationships, family dynamics, and society, just like mental slavery. Emotional slavery can take many forms, including people-pleasing, emotional manipulation, and codependency. People who are emotionally enslaved often prioritize the needs and desires of others over their own, which can lead to feelings of resentment, anger, and emotional exhaustion. Breaking free from emotional slavery requires self-awareness and the ability to recognize when one is being manipulated or controlled by others' emotions. It also requires developing healthy boundaries and the ability to communicate one's needs and desires effectively. This may involve seeking therapy or counseling and doing deep shadow work to learn coping mechanisms and strategies for dealing with emotional stressors. Ultimately, breaking free from emotional slavery is the process of learning to value oneself and one's own emotional well-being. And I feel a lot of people really need to understand this. So physical slavery refers to the ownership or control of one's person, their product of labor, and or their possessions by those who do not have the rightful ownership of them. Across epochs and continents, physical slavery has taken on various forms, driven by economic greed, lust for power, and deeply entrenched dogmatic axioms. Physical slavery often involves violence, coercion, duress, and exploitation to maintain control over the enslaved person or people. From the ghastly transatlantic slave trade to the insidious systems, governments, and states of servitude that permeate our current societies, the chains of bondage have clasped tightly upon the limbs and spirits of countless individuals. Slavery has caused immeasurable suffering, enduring scars on the collective consciousness of humanity. Breaking free from physical slavery often requires the intervention of external forces such as the use of physical self-defense. Through education, awareness, and the unyielding pursuit of human rights, we can strive to build a society where every individual is recognized as equal, where the sacred flame of freedom burns bright within the hearts of all. So it is each and every single sentient being's personal responsibility to deal with all three forms of slavery. Most people will effectively deal with mental and emotional slavery at some level, but they always stop at physical slavery because physical slavery actually takes some real effort and some real gall to actually stand up and get in the faces of authoritarians and to do something about what's going on. You know, everybody wants to free their mind, but they don't want to free their physical forms. And it's not truly freedom unless all three are in unison, simultaneously free. So I really want to talk about the torch of liberty. Since I'm talking about the spirit of liberty, we really are bringing up this ageless symbol of such power and prevalence that has inspired so many to continue to do what we are currently doing today at this conference. The torch of liberty has part of its roots in ancient Greek mythology, where it was associated with the goddess of wisdom, Athena, and the god of fire, Prometheus. The myth of Prometheus represents themes of rebellion, the sacrifices needed for defying authority, the symbolic significance of fire and knowledge in human progress, and the endurance of one's spirit in the face of punishment. Prometheus's actions continue to inspire and resonate with people as a symbol of defiance, sacrifice, and the pursuit of knowledge. And then in the 18th century, it was adopted as a symbol of the Enlightenment movement, which emphasized reason, liberty, and progress. The Statue of Liberty, perhaps the most famous representation of the Torch of Liberty, which was a gift from France to the United States in 1886, symbolizing the light of freedom shining across the world. The Torch of Liberty has been used as a symbol of many different movements, including the abolition of slavery. It represents the idea that freedom are universal values that should be cherished and protected by all. And that's why I'm using this symbol here today. So this presentation is pretty much a symbolic form of the Torch of Liberty. So what is the spirit of freedom? So let's define the spirit of freedom. Freedom is an essential property of objective morality and natural law, which is a crucial aspect of human life that enables us to live, work, and pursue our dreams without hindrance upon them through violent means. It is a state or condition that allows us to express ourselves, explore our potential, and make our own choices. The spirit of freedom is a powerful force that can inspire us to do great things and overcome any obstacles, especially that of authority. Freedom has never been a legal or political concept, but a natural state of being. It is liberation that arises when we are free to be who we are without oppression. The spirit of freedom encourages us to break free from the chains of conformity and pursue our own path of individual self-realization and growth. The spirit of freedom is a driving force for progress and innovation. It enables us to think outside the box and challenge the status quo. The freedom to explore new ideas and take risks is what has driven many of the world's greatest inventions and discovery. Having spirit means having a sense of vitality, energy, and enthusiasm for one's own rights and that of the rights of others. It refers to an inner force or motivation that drives a person to pursue their goals and overcome obstacles, and the understanding of the moral obligation to help free others. That last part is crucial. Spirit can manifest in different ways depending on the individual and their circumstances. For some, having spirit means having a positive attitude and a strong sense of realism, even in difficult situations. For others, it may mean having a sense of passion and purpose and a deep commitment to their values and beliefs. Having spirit can also mean being resilient and persistent in the face of challenges, like I've been saying. It involves having the strength and courage to face adversity and the determination to keep moving forward even when things are tough. Spirit is often associated with a sense of creativity, innovation, and imagination. It involves having the ability to see beyond the present moment and envision a brighter future. It also means being open to new experiences, ideas, and perspectives, and embracing change as an opportunity for growth and development. In short, having spirit means having a zest for life, a sense of purpose, and a commitment to personal growth and the evolution of consciousness. And that doesn't just mean yours. That means all of ours. And I thought this was a really good quote to bring to the table. All things share the same breath. The beast, the tree, the man, the air shares a spirit with all the life it supports. You know, the word spirit, spiritus, literally means breath. So we breathe together. So that's what that really means. You know, having the spirit of freedom means that we're all breathing together. We're all in this one motion to create this free society. And we will not allow any form of oppression to stop us from continuously persevering and becoming more free. So who are the proxy holders of the spirit of freedom? Well, I believe, and I very much hope that everybody here today knows who I'm talking about. Ostensibly, the spirit of freedom is held in the hands of order followers. This is nothing more than obfuscation and the monopoly on force. Ostensibly, the spirit of freedom is held in the hands of order followers. This is nothing more than obfuscation and a monopoly on force. The occupation of order following can never be the holder of the spirit of freedom, because order following, by its very definition, means you are not exercising true conscience, which is based upon the science of objective morality, not moral relativism. The spirit of freedom requires one to be able to correctly discern a right action from a wrong action, and this can only be done with the knowledge of natural law. Now, this is really crucial. All moral actions without this knowledge are nothing more than accidental at best. Let me repeat that. All moral actions without this knowledge are nothing more than accidental at best. What do I mean by that? I mean that if you do not make a conscious choice knowing to a high certainty that that is a correct action, and you do not have the knowledge of objective morality and natural law, then what you're doing is simply an accident. You're not making a conscious, correct, moral choice based upon the science of morality. You're just doing it because you feel like it's a good action, or you think it's a good action. You don't know for sure that it's a good action. That's why it's an accident, which it's the same result. So I'd rather have a world filled with accidental actions than one without. But still, we need a world filled with people who are consciously aware that it is a moral action to express. If one disobeys the unjust dictates of the authority or law, they no longer are an order follower and will be removed from that occupational position. Order following is the bane of the spirit of freedom, because they are the ones who are actually manifesting the result of the destruction of freedom. They are the most morally culpable when it comes to who is responsible for the current condition of slavery. So I'm not advocating for you to go out and fight these people currently, but I do think that we need to reach these people through very therapeutic means of deep shadow work, and to reach their spirits so that they can consciously recognize that the occupation that they are engaged in is actually antithetical to what they say they are trying to protect, which is freedom. Are you a dissonant? Well, you fucking should be. I'll tell you that. So what is a dissonant? For those who don't know, a dissonant is a person who openly opposes the policies, beliefs, or actions of their government or an established authority, often at personal risk. Dissonants may engage in a variety of activities to challenge or protest the status quo, such as writing and publishing critical articles or books, or publishing video media, online now, organizing protests or demonstrations, or engaging in civil disobedience, or things like, creating this conference. This conference is a form of, this conference is something that dissonants do, right? We are all dissonants here. All the organizers of this conference are dissonants. Dissidents often face persecution, censorship, imprisonment, and other forms of retaliation for their beliefs and actions, up to death, and really what it is murder by the state. They may be labeled as traitors, criminals, or terrorists, and may be subject to surveillance, harassment, or violence. Despite the risk involved, dissidents play an important role in promoting accountability. They can help to expose corruption, challenge authoritarianism, and inspire social change. A true dissident is somebody that absolutely opposes the established condition of slavery, regardless of how dangerous it is to their physical safety, because they understand that slavery is always immoral and illegitimate, and they correctly value the inherent rights of every single sovereign individual of this world. So that's really what they are. They're people who stand up against slavery. They are abolitionists is what they are. Talking about publishing, and I know I'm kind of like moving through this stuff pretty fast, and I'm not explaining everything, but I have limited time here. So I'm just trying to do the best I can to give you the information without spending 20 minutes explaining each slide. Publishing war of attrition. So the first thing is, what is the war of attrition? A war of attrition is a military strategy that involves wearing down the enemy's strengths and willpowers through prolonged and continuous engagement rather than achieving a decisive victory through a single swift assault. The goal of the battle of attrition is to deplete the enemy's resources, personnel, and morale, and to force them to retreat or surrender. A battle of attrition is often employed when the opposing forces are evenly matched or neither side can gain a decisive advantage through traditional military tactics. It can involve a variety of tactics, including siege warfare, guerrilla attacks or guerrilla warfare, and protracted engagements that inflict significant casualties on both sides. The term war of attrition was popularized during World War I, where it was used to describe the prolonged and bloody battles that characterized the conflict, such as the Battle of Verdun and many other battles. The strategy was also used in later conflicts, such as the Vietnam War and the Iran War. So, like most people will probably know this from the Vietnam War. While the battle of attrition can be effective in depleting the enemy's resources and will to fight, it also can be costly and time-consuming and can lead to high casualties on both sides. So what is the publishing war of attrition? In our modern day, there is currently a publishing war of attrition taking place. The authorities are endeavoring to squelch any form of dissonant behavior by flooding the media platforms with so much propaganda that the dissonant loses faith and motivation to continue. This is a form of psychological warfare. This form of psychological warfare is done to wear down the enemy's resolve until they become completely apathetic in the face of a daunting foe. We must not allow ourselves to be pushed back. Freedom has always been about fighting the odds, and it has never been in our favor. We must really understand that. It has never really been in our favor. We've always been fighting the odds with this. We must continue to hold our ground and strengthen our resolve in spite of the adversary's overwhelming power. Quantity is needed, but within the realm of quality. We need high quality published material in quantity. And that's what we're in right now, the publishing war of attrition. So we are currently at this conference, in that fight. We are in that battle right now. And this is quality work. It doesn't mean your stuff has to be perfect. It just means try to make it as good as possible. Like I've had some typos and stuff in this, presentation already that I overlooked. It's okay. You make mistakes. You keep moving forward. And this connects to social engineering and fear-based mind control. So what is this? This insidious method of manipulation aims to control your thoughts, emotions, and actions by exploiting the weaknesses inherent in human psychology. It is a tool wielded by those who seek dominion over your mind, your will, and ultimately your freedom. Social engineering is a calculated assault on your sovereignty using cunning and deception to infiltrate your consciousness. It understands that the humans possess deeply rooted vulnerabilities, such as the need for validation, the desire for security, and the fear of the unknown. The manipulators exploit these primal instincts to direct your choices and decisions without your conscious awareness. To emancipate yourself from the clutches of social engineering, you must become a vigilant warrior of consciousness. Question everything, challenge the narratives imposed upon you, and cultivate discernment in the face of deception. Educate yourself on the tactics employed by these manipulators and fortify your defenses against their insidious assaults. So I would highly recommend reading this book, Tavistock Institution, Social Engineering the Masses. It is one of the most profound books that you probably could read about social engineering. It is very, very well done and very well written. The social engineers of our time have completely and irrefutably assimilated our modern educational system into an agenda to maintain and create a power differential between those who understand true principles of liberty and those who do not. One aspect of this is to keep people ignorant regarding their sovereign inherent rights through indoctrination into postmodernism, which at its roots has the fallacious dogmatic ideology that the truth is malleable and that of moral relativity. Mind control programs directly designed to target at the psychology of the youth to instill ideologies which are actually antithetical to sound philosophy, principles, and truth of the individual's inherent sovereignty. One of these programs is the injection of fear-based mind control on the topic of guns, which is intended to accelerate the disarmament of the population. Mainstream media, intelligence agencies, and big tech corporations use this agenda of oppression by way of censorship and information manipulation. The common person increasingly believes that unless information comes from government sources, that it cannot be true. And that's one of the biggest things that really, we're fighting against is the mind control that people have been socially engineered into. I'm not trying to make it seem like these people are just victims and they have no control over their own minds, because they absolutely do to a certain degree. But we do also have to understand that they have been socially engineered to a certain degree as well. Haven't we all? And we all have the ability to change that. So they are still responsible for the information that they are consuming and their lack of discernment and their resistance to actually trying to make a change in themselves and doing their own shadow work. So this connects to the fear of chaos. Those who believe that authority is necessary and that it must continue have been actually duped into believing that human slavery is necessary and must continue in order to prevent chaos. Slavery and violence can never prevent chaos. Slavery and violence are chaos. The state is chaos. True freedom includes the possibility of chaos. This must be embraced with the courage and resolve. This must be embraced with courage and resolve if we are to ever truly be free. Chaos is a powerful teacher, which often brings suffering, but it is an indispensable lesson of what not to do. The fear of the possibility of chaos is the fear of true freedom. So I know this kind of seems a little contradictory that I'm saying like, hey, slavery and violence can never prevent chaos. Slavery and violence are chaos, but yet telling you that you need to embrace chaos, right? Well, it's a lesson. Slavery and violence is a lesson of what not to do. That's what I just said. So, it's very simple. Learn from these lessons. Chaos is there as a teacher, the ultimate teacher. So we always have these people who are like, oh, it won't work out, or we've never tested a system like anarchism or hierarchy or stateless societies. And you always hear all these excuses. And really, this is all just fear of chaos, and you just have to get over it. You have to get over it. And you have to say that freedom is worth facing that chaos. Fear is the passion of slaves. Patrick Henry, one of my favorite quotes of all time. So the next thing is sacrifice is required. Now, a lot of people hate this one. The truth is that sacrifices are required to do the great work. These sacrifices come in many different forms, such as your personal comfort, finances, friendships, family members, social activities, vices, jobs, and much more. Yes, you have to give up a percentage of your time and attention to actually create the condition which you say you want. There are requirements for manifesting true freedom in a society. And if those requirements are not met, the outcome will never manifest. And as Edmund Burke said, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. So yes, we have to actually give up our time and attention to put it into things that are of value for the progression and the evolution of the species. One ought never turn one's back on the threatened danger and try not to run away from it. If you do that, you will double the danger. But if you meet it promptly and without flinching, you would reduce it by half. Winston Churchill. This is one of my favorite quotes as well. I really like this image, this graphic that I found for this. You have to face the danger. We all do. Otherwise, we're just making it worse. Strength and willpower, which we all need to cultivate. To unleash the source and strength of freedom means to remove the obstacles that prevent individuals from fully exercising their rights and enjoying the benefits of freedom. It involves creating the condition that enables people to live in dignity, free from oppression, discrimination, and violence. The source of freedom lies in the recognition of the inherent dignity and worth of every single human being, and the knowledge that people are entitled to certain inalienable rights. These rights include the right to life, liberty, and security of person, as well as the right of freedom of thought, expression, and association. There's no way we can list all the rights, because there's infinite amount of rights. The strength of freedom lies in the ability of individuals to exercise these rights and live their lives according to their own choices and aspirations. Unleashing the source and strength of freedom requires collective action by we the people. And what I mean by that is that each individual are taking accountability and responsibility for their own lives. Okay, so I know a lot of people might take that and be like, oh, this is a collectivist ideology. No. I'm talking about just individualists, because the one must come before the two. It's just that we're all doing it together. It involves promoting education, raising awareness, and building capacities that enable individuals to participate fully in society and make informed decisions about their lives. It also requires addressing the root cause of inequality, poverty, and exclusion, which can serve as barriers to the exercise of freedom. It does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men. Samuel Adams, another one of my favorite quotes. I really like this graphic as well. So this next section is a little bit more philosophical, and I'm not going to have time to explain every little ins and outs of this, but I kind of wanted to bring this to the table because it does apply to natural law. So this is when intent does matter, because there is times when intent does matter when you are deciding what you're actually going to do. Deontology and utilitarianism are two contrasting ethical theories that offer different approaches to determining what is morally right or wrong. Here's a comparison of the two. Deontology. Deontology is the ethical theory that emphasizes the importance of duty, rule, and principles in determining the morality of an action. It focuses on the inherent nature of actions rather than their consequences. According to deontologists, certain actions are intrinsically right or wrong regardless of their outcomes. So key principles of this would be moral duties. Deontologists believe that individuals have certain moral duties or obligations that they must adhere to, like moral obligations. These duties are derived from principles such as do not lie, do not harm others, keep promises. Not do not keep promises, but keep promises. Categorically imperatives. Immanuel Kant, who was a deontologist, a prominent deontological philosopher, proposed the concept of categorical imperatives. These are universal moral principles that apply in situations regardless of personal preference or desire. For example, the principle of not lying is considered a categorical imperative. Intent. Deontologists place great importance on the intention behind an action. They argue that the moral worth of an action depends upon the motive or the reason for performing this. So this all comes back to this idea, right? So the end justifies the means, or the end does not justify the means. The means have to be completely justified before we can say that the ends are justified. And I'll explain a little bit more of this, but let me explain utilitarianism. Utilitarianism is an ethical theory that focuses on maximizing overall happiness or utility as the basis for determining the morality of an action. It considers the consequences of an action and seeks to produce the greatest amount of happiness or well-being for the greatest number of people. So the key principles of this are greatest happiness principle. Utilitarianism is often associated with the principle of greatest happiness or the greatest good for the greatest numbers. So you often hear this as the greatest, good, the argument of the greater good, right? According to utilitarians, the moral value of an action is determined by the overall impact on the well-being of individuals affected by it. And this is consequentialism. So consequentialism is this idea which means it evaluates the morality of an action based on its outcomes or the consequences. Actions that maximize happiness are considered morally right, while those that lead to suffering or decrease overall utility are considered morally wrong. So all of these kind of connect to hedonistic calculus, which a lot of utilitarians employ as a form of calculation of pleasure and pain. They often attempt to measure the intensity, duration, certainty, propinquity, fecundity, purity, and extent of pleasure or pain caused by an action in order to determine its moral value. So when it comes to natural law, there's actually kind of a balance between both of these when you fully understand this. If you understand what a right is, we definitely have the idea of consequentialism underlying the principles of rights, because it is the outcome that determines whether it is a right or not. But also, if you understand that there is no such thing as the right to believe in slavery, as an example, the intent of that also plays a factor into it. Also, if you are intending on, let's say rounding up people to put them in some kind of death camp or something like this, right? Then you have a morally justifiable reason to actually prevent that person from doing that, even if they actually haven't done that thing itself, because the harm is so dangerous. Let's say that they're actually creating this facility, or it's already built and it's already ready, and they're conspiring to actually do this, right? So the intent does matter, and this is why we do have a justifiable means to actually stop government, because government intends to do harm. So if somebody comes up to you and threatens you with something and they intend to do harm with that item, that intent does matter. Whether they've actually harmed you or not, like physically, doesn't matter. The intent matters in that situation, obviously. So intent does matter when it comes to deontology, and the consequences do matter when it comes to utilitarianism. So we're trying to maximize both, right? So freedom has to strike a balance between both of these. Unfortunately, there has been a big divide between both of these philosophical and ethical ideologies, and I think natural law really bridges that divide. So I can't really explain this more. Maybe I'll explain this more on a Cubbywhole podcast or something like that, but hopefully this gives you a little bit more understanding about the differences here. Now, obviously, intent doesn't matter when it comes to the consequences of the action, right? So when it comes to natural law, you intending it to be a good action doesn't mean that it's actually going to be a good action. And sometimes, and more than often than not, intent paves the road to damnation and destruction and the destruction of freedom. You know, so like the police officers, they're intending to do something good, but in fact, they're actually not doing something good. So that's where consequentialism comes into play there. So without further explanation of this, because I'm running out of time, need to move forward. So preparedness. One of the crucial things for those of us who understand the reality of our situation is that of preparedness. This includes mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical preparation for what is currently happening and what is coming. This does not mean that you have to become a full-on prepper to survive some zombie apocalypse, but it does mean to allocate a percentage of your time, attention, and finances into building up mental resilience, tempering the emotions, strengthening your spiritual connection, learning survival skills, and gathering survival resources. We need to recognize that preparedness also comes with engaging in critical thinking of scenarios which may unfold, and how would you accurately respond to them if you were in these scenarios or in those scenarios. So I think this is really important because doesn't mean you have to become super eagerly attached to like preparedness, right? But it does mean you need to like focus on something like this. You need to become more self-sufficient. You need to take advantage of martial arts and stuff like this, right? You need to be activated when it comes to this, because it's better to be prepared and not need it than it is to not be prepared when you need it. By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. Benjamin Franklin. Moving on to the next section, willingness to learn the mysteries. Having the willingness to learn means having an open mind and curious attitude towards acquiring new knowledge and skills. It involves being receptive to feedback, seeking out new experiences and opportunities, and recognizing that learning is a lifelong process. People who have the willingness to learn tend to be more adaptable, flexible, and creative. They are not afraid to take risks or make mistakes, as they see them as opportunities for growth and improvement. They are also more likely to embrace change and to seek out new challenges and experiences. Having a willingness to learn is particularly important in today's fast-paced world and constantly changing world, where new technologies, ideas, and trends are constantly emerging. It is essential for personal and professional development, as well as for staying relevant and competitive in the job market. To cultivate a willingness to learn, it is important to adopt a growth mindset and to view challenges as opportunities for learning and growth. It is also helpful to seek out feedback and constructive criticism, to engage in self-reflection, and to pursue learning opportunities both inside and outside of one's comfort zone. If you are not willing to learn, nobody can help you. If you are determined to learn, nobody can stop you. Manly P. Hall. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The mysteries of the universe have captivated the minds of humanity for countless generations, from the esoteric teachings of ancient Egyptians to the profound wisdom of the Greeks. We have sought to understand the nature of existence, to unlock the secrets of the cosmos. At the heart of these mysteries lies the fundamental question of who we are and why we exist. What is the purpose of our lives, and what lies beyond the veil of perception? As students of the mysteries, we recognize that there is so much more to life than what we can see with our physical eyes. The true nature of reality lies beyond the material world, in the realm of spirit and consciousness. In exploring these mysteries, we must be willing to embark on a journey of self-discovery, to delve deep within ourselves and unlock the potential that lies within. It should be infinite potential that lies within. We must be open to new experiences and perspectives and willing to challenge our own preconceptions and beliefs. The mysteries of the universe reveal themselves in many forms, from the study of the stars and planets to the contemplation of the inner workings of the human mind and psyche. They can be found in the myths and legends of ancient cultures, in the wisdoms of spiritual traditions, and in insights of modern sciences. Through our exploration of these mysteries, we begin to understand all of existence and is interconnected, that everything in the universe is part of a vast and intricate web of life. We come to realize that our own lives are but small parts of this greater whole, and that we have a responsibility to act in harmony with the natural world and with one another. The mysteries of the universe are not meant to be solved in a single lifetime, nor are they exclusive domain of any particular culture or tradition. Rather, they are endless sources of inspiration and discovery, inviting us to continue our journey of exploration and self-discovery. So let us embrace the mysteries of the universe and allow them to guide us on our journey of self-discovery and enlightenment. May the light of knowledge shine brightly upon our path, illuminating the way forward and leading us ever closer to the ultimate truth of existence. If we can ever actually reach that, but we should always aspire towards reaching that. So what is natural law? This is so important. This is fundamental because this is part of the mysteries of the universe, obviously. And this is very crucial to the existence of humanity in our current condition. Natural law is a science of morality that can directly be observed in operation in reality. The evidence of the existence of natural law is resultant state, meaning the consequences of existence, which humanity receives as a direct result of our aggregate behavior, the human condition itself. Natural law is the governing dynamic for the consequences of the behaviors from beings with the capacity to understand the difference between moral and immoral actions. Natural law are inherent moral principles in nature that are discoverable through the correct use of reason and intuition, which are universal and immutable. The law of freedom has a quantifiable effect. Aggregate freedom is directly proportional to aggregate morality. We collectively reap the result of the behavior that we collectively sow. So this is actually very simple. It's very easy to understand, and we can see this in our everyday lives, right? We can see this at the microcosmic level as well, but it's much easier to see at the macrocosmic level. So as we continue to do more immoral actions, then the society or that collective group starts to degrade into more and more slavery. And vice versa, as we continue to do more and more moral actions and less immoral actions, the society manifests more freedom, more creativity, more inspiration, more growth, more evolution, all the good stuff that we want. The next section is called Activating the Body. Each and every one of us should be dedicating a portion of our daily activities towards strengthening our physical body connection. Every single day, the foot soldiers of the elite are training to put down dissidents. Without this kind of resolve, we are at a far greater disadvantage when it comes to the potential hot revolution that could unfold. This means making a conscious effort to endeavor to focus on your health and skills. Obviously, this is not capable for every single individual, maybe because of some kind of handicap, but for those who are capable, they should spend a portion of their time to develop the skills which are necessary to help defend their own sovereignty and the sovereignty of others. The law of self-defense, which is one of the main pillars of enlightenment. The spirit of freedom is directly intertwined with the true understanding of the self-defense principle. Individuals who have been put in arrested development exhibit a fearful emotional mindset devoid of any rational or logical arguments. Those who suffer from being in arrested development is directly due to the social engineers of our time creating a population of ignorance and cowardice. By abdicating their own personal responsibility to learn the self-defense principle, they have been duped into relying upon the monopoly of violence by the enforcers of the state. They are overreactive to any individual who displays the conscious use of self-defense and insists that everyone else should have to lose their natural inherent rights of self-defense just so that they cannot be afraid. This is the mentality of a spiritual immature individual that has been duped into believing that government is there to protect them. Malcolm X said, "I don't even call it violence when it's in self-defense. I call it intelligence." And that's so true. John Dryden said, "Self-defense is nature's eldest law." The premise that emotions supersede the reality of the need and right to defend freedom is a logical and a dangerous ideology. This is trauma-based mind control, which has created a population who exhibit the psychological characteristics of Stockholm Syndrome. It is an absurd concept to think that by removing the freedom which grants an individual to defend themselves, by the necessary and required force to prevent violence, will keep you safe is exactly what a predator would want you to think. You cannot keep yourself safe in the truest sense of the word without having the freedom to express the behaviors which are required to keep yourself safe. An individual who violates another individual does not set the precedence to justifiably violate other innocent individuals of their own inherent rights. If a person dies to any form of violence, that is a violation of that individual's right to life by another individual taking an objectively wrong and violent action. No other innocent individual is to be held responsible for the misdeeds committed by people who abuse the use of force. Only I am personally responsible for my own actions. All right, moving on to the next slide. Self-mastery and sovereignty, harnessing the inner flame. Now that's what I'm talking about. That's what we all need. Self-mastery ignites the dormant ember within, awakening the seeker to the innate potential and their inner wisdom. Through the luminous light of self-awareness, we delve into the recesses of the psyche, unraveling the intricacies of our own thoughts, emotions, and desires. By honing emotional intelligence, we master the alchemical art of navigating the turbulent sea of human experience, choosing wisdom over impulsivity. To traverse the path of self-mastery, we must wield the scepter of self-discipline. In forging this sacred weapon, we transcend the fleeting allure of instant gratification, sculpting our character with steadfast resolve. Through the discipline of mindful choices and steadfast determination, we mold our own destiny and craft a masterpiece of personal growth. The celestial compass of goal setting guides us on this mystical odyssey. With clear intentions and unwavering focus, we set sail upon uncharted waters of our aspirations. Along this path, we encounter trials and tribulations, refining our spirit and nurturing resilience. Every setback transforms into a stepping stone, propelling us ever closer to the radiant shores of self-mastery. The crown of sacred autonomy. Obviously, this is all in relation to the theme of my subtitle. Sovereignty, the diadem of sacred autonomy, adorns the seeker with the regal power to reign over their own existence. It is the sacred birthright, the emancipation from external influences that seek to bind and stifle our true essence. Embracing sovereignty entails an intimate dance with authenticity, wherein we shed the mask of conformity and emerge as the truest versions of ourselves. Boundaries, like steadfast sentinels, delineate the sacred space of our being. By recognizing and asserting our boundaries, we protect the sanctity of our journey, preserving the sacred flame within. Sovereignty empowers us to safeguard our values, dreams, and aspirations, shielded from the tempestuous winds of external forces. In the realm of sovereignty, authenticity becomes the lustrous jewel that adorns our being. It is the unwavering commitment to living in harmony with our deepest truths, unfurling the vibrant tapestry of the uniqueness. Through the harmonious union of self-mastery and sovereignty, we radiate an irresistible luminescence, inspiring others to embark upon their own noble quest for liberation. Now let us embark on the sacred odyssey. The path of self-mastery and sovereignty unveils an ancient and timeless odyssey of enlightenment and self-realization. Through profound introspection, compassionate self-understanding, and unwavering commitment, we awaken the dormant faculties of our divine essence. Let us embrace this sacred pilgrimage, transcend our limitations, and emerge as majestic architects of our destiny. As we illuminate our inner world, we become beacons of inspiration, igniting the dormant embers within others. Together, let us embark upon this transformative journey, weaving a tapestry of self-mastery and sovereignty that transcends the boundaries of time and space. For in the crucible of self-mastery and the crown of sovereignty, we unlock the hidden chamber of our soul and manifest our divine purpose, birthing a world where each individual stands sovereign, radiating their unique brilliance amidst the symphony of creation. And I really love this quote by Sun Tzu, and if anybody hasn't read The Art of War, they absolutely need to. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. So we need to know both. Now, obviously, I am invoking themes of alchemy and the torch of liberty and the flame of sovereignty. So, with that being said, I wanted to bring up the alchemical phoenix because I believe this presentation is all about the metaphor of the alchemical phoenix. The alchemical phoenix is a symbol in alchemy that represents the process of transformation and renewal. In the alchemical tradition, the phoenix is believed to be a mythical bird that is consumed by fire and then reborn from its own ashes. In alchemy, the phoenix is seen as a metaphor for transformation of base metals into gold, or the purification and transmutation of the human soul. The process of transformation is often described as a journey of death and rebirth, in which the old self is destroyed or dissolved and a new self is born from the ashes of the old. The alchemical phoenix is also associated with the concept of the prima materia, or the primal substance that contains the potential for transformation. In this sense, the phoenix represents the innermost essence of the individual, which must be purified and refined in order to achieve spiritual enlightenment or transcendence. The symbolism of the alchemical phoenix has been interpreted in many different ways throughout history and has been used in various spiritual, philosophical, and artistic traditions. It is often associated with the themes of renewal, rebirth, regeneration, and transcendence, and is a powerful symbol of the transformative power of the human spirit. So, what we all need to do is dissolve all the impurities of our consciousness, all of the mind control, all of the subconscious indoctrinative programs that are laid there by the sorcerer elites, and rebirth ourselves into a new being, a powerful phoenix, the Phoenix Force. Think of Marvel. You think how powerful she is in that, right? She's a cosmic force, and that's what we need. We need a cosmic force to battle this spiritual war that we're in. So we need to invoke the alchemical phoenix. We need to set fire to our old self, and out of the ashes, we will be born anew, the second birth into a pure, or at least a more pure being of our spiritual essence, so that we can combat the iniquities and the inequities of this world. Freedom. Freedom is not a gift bestowed upon us by external authorities. It is not something to be granted or taken away. True freedom is an inherent birthright, an intrinsic aspect of our every being. It is our natural state of being. To manifest holistic freedom, we must learn and live in harmony with natural law. We are now called to embark upon the sacred alchemical journey as torchbearers of enlightenment. It is our personal responsibility to keep the flame of liberty alive. It is a path of profound self-discovery, inner transformation, and conscious evolution. Let us nurture the inner flame, fueling it with self-awareness, introspection, shadow work, and the commitment to natural law evolution. Through the alchemy of self-mastery and the integration of the mind, body, and spirit, we unlock the gates of holistic freedom. As we awaken to our true potential, we radiate an irresistible light, inspiring others to embark on their own transformative quest. Let us walk the path of wisdom and illumination, forging a reality where the inner flame burns brightly and holistic freedom becomes a living reality for all. For within the depths of our being lies the key to our liberation, the sacred fire that yearns to set us free. We must be the living definition of freedom every single day. And with that being said, this is the last quote I have for today. Let us live so that when we come to die, even the undertaker will be sorry. Mark Twain. And I use the symbolic third degree of Freemasonry, the tracing board of the third degree of Freemasonry, to symbolize this process of completion and renewal and rebirth. The commencement and recommencement has begun. With that being said, I thank all of you for joining us at this wonderful conference. I want to thank all the participants, all the speakers, all the amazing organizers They have put in a lot of hard work to get this going, and they deserve a lot of credit for what they've done. And it's just very amazing to be a part of this event. Thank all of you, the guests, the viewers, the observers who are here to share this information with us and to participate in learning and growing and evolving collective consciousness and evolving our spiritual awareness. And with that all being said, now, rebirth the phoenix. Bring the flame on. Never give up, never surrender. Freedom is worth fighting for. It is worth doing everything for, especially for posterity and progeny. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll see you next time.